find yourself in the middle of a task and your mind starts to wander, or perhaps you're a daydreamer, but instead of scenarios where Ed McMahon shows up with a check, maybe you find yourself wondering things like, I don't know, why do I put my drinking glasses open and down? Why do other people not do it that way? Or just as you're falling asleep, your brain decides it's the perfect time to deep dive into pop culture backstories! If every first-year Hogwarts student is allowed to have a pet, how many pets is that? Quick math and keep it to cats. Year 1, Gryffindor boys, Harry, Ron, Neville, Seamus, and Dean equals 5. Assume 5 Gryffindor girls for a total of 10 new students each year for each house for a total of 40 new students each year. She who must not be named admitted that she was pleased when she realized her list of students came up to an even 40, so she didn't bother to make any more. So we assumed 40 students in each year up to and including year 7. Yes, there are suggestions within the books that point to more than 40 students per year, and also suggestions that point to not every house being evenly divided into 10, but let's make it a little easy because I don't math well. So 40 students per year, dismissing deaths and dropouts, carry the one. If every student had a cat, that would be 280 cats in the castle. That's a lot of cat litter. If you can relate, then you'll understand why, while I was showering and considering whether or not to shave my legs, I didn't. Because it's winter, and we've already covered that I have been spending mucho time in swamp hag mode, aka sweatpants and hoodies. So, yeah. So while I stood there, wasting hot water and staring at the brown tiles in my shower, I wondered, when did we start shaving our legs? And honestly, why? The short answer is the patriarchy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Okay, bye! Jokes. Honestly, the long answer is also the patriarchy, but also consumerism and capitalism, which I suppose just, you know, if we put it into categories, it still is under the head of patriarchy. Waxing or sugaring, not the same thing, but similar end results, has been used for centuries, at least as far back as the ancient Egyptians, who also used seashells as razors. The Romans, a few centuries later, were using tweezers, pumice stones, and depilatory creams, lotions. Jump forward again in time, and Elizabethan England had women shaving off their eyebrows and elongating their faces by plucking their hairlines. They were also removing hair from other areas. See what I did there? Hairy. It was during the 18th century that a French barber created the first razor, primarily used by men for facial hair removal, as most European and American women had their bodies thoroughly covered by the fashions of the time. So why would we bother? Late 19th century, Gillette, yes, Gillette, created the first version of a safety razor for men. At home in Boston one morning in 1895, King Gillette found himself with a dull blade in need of resharpening. As I stood there with the razor in my hand, he later remembered, my eyes resting on it as lightly as a bird settling down on its nest, the Gillette razor was born. In 1901, Gillette and William E. Nickerson founded the American Safety Razor Company and opened their first factory in Boston. Who was Nickerson? He was some dude who said that he could actually manage to make metal thin enough to be an effective razor. In 1915, Gillette introduced the first razor marketed specifically to women, the Milady Décolletée Gillette. Gillette promoted the idea that body hair on women is inherently masculine, indelicate, and ultimately unhygienic. The term shaving, however, was associated with masculine personal care routine. Gillette was careful to choose different advertising terms for women, encouraging them to make their legs and underarms smooth as the face by smoothing with the Milady Décolletée Gillette. As for objectionable facial hair, women were marketed products to bleach, wax, or dissolve away their embarrassment. World War I saw the Gillette Company provide each American serviceman with a field razor set that the government paid for. In 1918 alone, the U.S. military bought 3.5 million Gillette razors. It's wild. King Gillette, not unlike Warren Buffett and other rich millionaires of today, understood that to make money, you needed to make something that people wanted. And more than that, something people needed. People wanted the safety razor because it was better and easier. They needed the replacement blades to continue shaving. Women were as yet a mostly untapped market, but that would all change once we hit the Jazz Age, with its shorter hemlines and sleeveless tops. Manufacturers seized the moment to really push this idea of underarm shaving. To convince women that buying a razor was as essential as buying matching gloves or hat, catalogs began marketing the two products together. Shaving products were showing up in fashion magazines by 1917, and in 1922 Sears Roebuck advertised women's razors and depilatories the same year that sheer and sleeveless dresses were being sold. Advertising! Hey, advertising! Body hair was now an embarrassment.
Oh, embarrassing.
We were told as much in the magazines. Armpits free of hair afforded a woman more freedom at the beach and in life. Buying a razor was buying a better place in society. But you know what women still couldn't be bothered to shave? Their legs! Why is that, Katie? Because a real lady wears stockings. Shockingly shorter skirts? No worries, Mother dear. My legs are still covered in silk. Now we come to the 40s and World War II. While we think of nylon as being a modern invention of the post-World War II era, at least I did, it was around as early as 1935, and the DuPont company made it into hosiery by 1939. May 16, 1940 was officially known as Nylon Day. It became an overnight sensation. Sources differ, but basically in 48 hours or less, 4 million pairs were sold. 4 million! Just over a year later, Pearl Harbor was bombed, and with it the Japanese imports of silk were gone, and nylon and silk were then needed for parachutes, uniforms, ropes, and netting. And women were encouraged to drop off their used stockings at donation boxes. Not only was shaving your legs now fashionable, it was patriotic. Like, here, they're a little holy, and I mean, they smell like feet, but you're welcome to parachute with them. A vintage ad claims it took 444 pairs of stockings to make a single parachute. Imagine what that would have looked like. Just 444 pairs of legs floating from the sky. Like, did they still look like stockings when they were sewn into the parachute? Like, was it just a bunch of heels and toes? Imagine this, sewn together. Like, I'm screaming. Also, this isn't gonna stop me from crashing to the earth. My next door neighbor taught me this when I was younger. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. And he ain't gonna jump no more. Okay. These are very sheer stockings. We can admit that. They are vintage. They are a legit vintage stocking. They're likely 60s. Or maybe 70s. They are very, very delicate. So this was not the type of material that would have been used for parachuting. It's not saving anybody. It scraped him off the runway like a slob of strawberry jam. I digress. You could wear your woolen hose to stay warm and proper in polite company and during the day at the office, but you can't wear wool with dainty sundresses or even cocktail dresses. What was a gal about town to do? Liquid stockings and drawn-on seams, of course. Enter the fashion of leg makeup. Thick, tinted lotions designed to create the illusion of fabric for women reluctant to appear bare-legged. Legged? It only worked, though, if you had smooth legs. According to a ladies' magazine, the best liquid stockings available will deceive no one unless the legs are smooth and free of hair or stubble. Leg makeup will mat or cake on the hairs and make detours around the stubble and give a streaky appearance. In fact, the practice of shaving, powdering, or coloring one's leg became such a regular practice that a device was created to help a lady achieve the straightest fake seam line all on her own. Just don't have the time or skill for the intense application process? Much like Sephora has the Benefit Bra Bar, you too could stop by the local department store's leg makeup bar and get guidance, or just pay someone else to do it. And best of all, no more ladders. Friends, if you don't know what a ladder is, it's basically just a fun way of saying a run, because they look like little ladders, you know. With nylon or silk hose hard to come by, women had the look of stockings brushed on their legs. This is all fake. There's even a garter clip drawn on. Like, what? So from 1941-ish to 1949-ish, in the UK specifically, women were without silk, and the new nylon stockings hadn't made it across the pond before war broke out. So they essentially spent 10 years shaving their legs. So when stockings came back, it would make sense that you would continue shaving your legs. Also, as they became more delicate, the slightest thing would snag them and put a run in them, and they're expensive. So you hear stories of women who would file your nails down to make sure that there were no snags. You would check for hangnails. You would possibly even moisturize, though honestly putting on tights while you moisturize is... I even know a story of one woman who would actually put on gloves to put on her stockings to avoid snags and snares, because the minute you got a snag or snare, it was game over, man. Game over! If you had $20 to spare in wartime and weren't afraid of, using the black market and going to jail, you could score a pair of nylon stockings. One black market entrepreneur diverted a nylon shipment and earned himself $100,000. Way to be a team player, Joe. Couldn't afford the makeup? Some ladies used tea or gravy. Trouble with that was if you got caught in the rain or started to sweat while you were dancing, then your painted nylons would get the runs. In North America, particularly in the States, it was a very different situation altogether. The Nylon Riots. You heard me. The Nylon Riots. First world problem. Less than a week after Japan's surrender in August of 1945, the War Production Board announced that DuPont's nylon manufacturing would pivot away from wartime manufacturing and return to hosiery. Newspapers and advertisements cheered, "Peace! It's here! Nylon's on sale!" The motto, "Nylons by Christmas," was sung everywhere, because DuPont thought they could easily ramp up production and be churning out millions within the first month. So imagine when that September, a very small post-war shipment of stockings went on limited sale across the country. Women flooded the stores, knocking down shelves and displays. In November, 40,000 women in Pittsburgh alone lined up for over a mile to snag one of 13,000 pairs of stockings. 40,000, 13, I don't math well, but that just doesn't seem like it's going to be enough stockings. The shortage persisted into 1946 when DuPont was finally able to produce 30 million pairs of stockings a month. There's a 20-second CBC archival radio report from February 1946 discussing how in Vancouver, women lined up around the block, and one store felt the need to erect barricades across their windows. There was luckily no need, as the women remained orderly and no property was destroyed and no one was hurt. I think it's our British love of queuing patiently that likely kept us calm and orderly. We love a good lineup, unless you're trying to get TTC, and nobody knows how to line up. It's infuriating. DuPont was accused of being greedy and unpatriotic for maintaining exclusive rights to the patent. In turn, DuPont blamed selfish housewives with nothing better to do than stand in line and hoard stockings. In 1951, after being threatened with an antitrust suit, DuPont agreed to share nylon licensing with other corporations. Friends, there was a song written about DuPont nylons by Fats Waller and George Marion Jr. I couldn't find an original recording, but you can hear it on the Ain't Misbehavin' soundtrack. Give it a listen. This was fun. It led to a lot more questions and ideas for future episodes. Are there any random musings you've had that you never bothered to look up? Maybe your family has a weird quirk that you didn't realize was a weird quirk until you saw how other families did the same thing differently. I'm looking at you, upside down glasses. Why? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I'm gonna go work on another project now. Maybe make another pair of pants, because I have literally been living in these and they are amazing. Subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified of future videos. If you enjoyed this, give me the old thumbs up, and honestly, leave me a comment. I can't be the only person who's ever wondered why we collect fat drippings in a can just to throw it out. Maybe I am. Anyways, bye! He jumped from 40,000 feet, forgot to pull the cord, and he ain't gonna jump no more. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die.